Hello and welcome to Inside the Americas. I'm Delon D'Souza. Coming up on the show this week. Eric Adams set to become the next mayor of America's largest city. The former New York police officer has a nuanced take on issues of law enforcement. US authorities approve giving children aged 5 to 11 Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine. The inoculation drive is set to be fully up and running by Monday. And defenders of the Amazon urge COP26 delegates not to trust pledges made by Brazil's president, Jair Bolsonaro, accused of greenwashing. But first, former police captain Eric Adams is set to become New York City's next mayor. The Democratic candidate has a nuanced stance on law enforcement issues as both an African-American man and a former officer. In his acceptance speech, Adams called for unity while telling a story of a working-class child who grew up to become mayor.
Freshly elected as the 110th mayor of New York, a triumphant Eric Adams greeted his supporters following his landslide victory. The former police officer was keen to highlight his background, not only as a cop, but as a black man who was himself a victim of police violence in the past.
My mother cleaned houses. I washed dishes. I was beaten by police and sat in a precinct holding cells, certain that my future was already decided. And now, I will be the person in charge of that precinct and every other precinct in the city of New York.
Adams had been the clear favorite since winning the Democratic primary in June and was endorsed by his two predecessors, Bill de Blasio and Michael Bloomberg. He now faces a staggering set of challenges as he prepares to take charge of the nation's largest city. These include lingering economic inequalities and a spike in crime rate, two issues that have been compounded by the COVID-19 pandemic. But for his supporters, there is no doubt he is the best man for the job.
He's from this community. When we were experiencing hardship during the pandemic, he was the only politician that reached out to us in this community.
A moderate Democrat, Adams has been a vocal opponent of calls to defund the police and supports a strong and robust police presence to combat crime. He will now have a chance to put his ideas to the test as he steps into what's considered the country's second toughest job after the presidency.
Now, the U.S. state of Virginia has just selected its first Republican governor in over a decade, Glenn Youngkin winning over his Democratic opponent, former Governor Terry McAuliffe. The race had been viewed by some as a potential bellwether for Democrats' prospects in the midterm elections next year. Next, U.S. authorities have approved giving children aged 5 to 11 Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine. The move was hailed by President Joe Biden, who said it marked a turning point in the fight against the pandemic. 28 million children in the United States are eligible for the vaccine, and that's our number of the week this week. The inoculation drive is set to be fully up and running by Monday. Karis Garland reports.
With a round of applause from his friends, 6-year-old Kareem receives his first COVID-19 vaccine. Like him, 28 million Americans between 5 and 11 years old are now eligible for the Pfizer jab.
It doesn't really hurt, but do it for the sake of America, because it's helping America in the world, so life is better for each and every person on Earth.
Authorities cleared the drug for the younger age group on Tuesday, saying that while the risk of severe illness and death was lower in children, the virus had a profound impact on kids' mental health and created disparities in access to education. The vaccine will still be given in 2 injections 3 weeks apart, but only a third of the amount given to adults and teenagers. In a recent CDC survey of 1,000 parents, 57% said they would get their child vaccinated.
I totally believe in the vaccine. I believe in the science. I read all the articles where they say that that outweigh the benefits outweigh the possible other effects.
Some parents, though, disagree. A main concern is the rare risk of inflammation of the heart muscle detected in adolescents and young adults after vaccination with the Pfizer or Moderna shots.
I don't think that any parent should put that in their kids' bodies.
In the US, more than 8,300 5 to 11-year-olds have been hospitalized with COVID-19, with about a third requiring intensive care, according to government data.
To our image of the week next, and it's of this: the US president dozing off at the COP26 summit in Glasgow, Scotland. Joe Biden was woken up by an aide a few seconds later. Now, at the World Leaders Summit this week, defenders of the Amazon urged delegates not to trust pledges made by the Brazilian president. Jair Bolsonaro, accused of greenwashing after his environmental policies over the past 3 years have wreaked havoc.
A green canopy stretching as far as the eye can see. Brazil is home to 60% of the Amazon rainforest. Despite deforestation reaching record levels under the current government, the country had one of the biggest delegations at the climate talks in Glasgow.
Apresentamos hoje uma nova meta climática mais ambiciosa, passando de 43% para 50% até 2030. E de neutralidade de carbono até 2050.
Ambitious talk which is far from the reality on the ground. Critics say it's greenwashing. Climate change skeptic Jair Bolsonaro has been in power since 2019. The far-right leader is a fierce defender of agribusiness and mining exploration in the Amazon. Over the last few years, he's cut funding of several federal agencies in charge of protecting the environment, slashing their budget by 35%, according to Greenpeace. IBAMA, the environmental police, have seen the biggest shortfall, and the results are clear. Just in the last 2 years, deforestation in the Amazon has gone up by nearly 50%. But COP26 is clearly not a priority for the Brazilian leader. Jair Bolsonaro skipped the meeting of world leaders in Glasgow on Monday, instead heading to Italy, where he was met with both cheers and jeers as he collected his honorary citizenship.
Over 1,000 social media accounts linked to the government of Nicaragua and the party of President Daniel Ortega have been taken down. According to Facebook parent company Meta, the troll farm was being used to corrupt or manipulate public discourse. The move comes ahead of elections in Nicaragua next week, where the president is seeking a 4th consecutive term in office.
Tapping out pro-regime and anti-opposition rhetoric. More than 1,000 accounts were managed by the Nicaraguan authorities, with the aim of manipulating public discourse by pushing a pro-regime message and discrediting the opposition. Facebook, now known as Meta, is calling it a troll farm. The accounts, which had been online since April 2018, were all deleted on Monday, just days ahead of the presidential election on the 7th of November, a vote that doesn't hold much suspense. The incumbent, Daniel Ortega, is campaigning for a 4th mandate, with his wife, Rosario Murillo, running as his vice president for the 2nd time. They've got rid of any credible political opposition. This summer, 7 candidates were imprisoned, while 2 others fled to Costa Rica to escape the same fate. Only 5 small parties, all satellites of the regime, are still running.
Llevan candidatos presidenciales, por ejemplo, que no solo no son conocidos porque no hay campaña electoral verdadera.
But the vote is still going ahead. Since Monday, 30,000 members of the security forces have been deployed. Between now and Sunday, ballot boxes are being dispatched to more than 3,000 voting centers in the country.
Que las funciones que tenemos por ley de la República es apoyar al Consejo Supremo Electoral. Respetamos el voto de nuestro pueblo, que es el soberano para elegir.
After crushing a protest movement in 2018, Ortega's grip on the country has tightened. Forced exiles and assassinations of journalists and political opponents are common. Around 40 political prisoners are currently behind bars. The EU's foreign policy chief has blasted Ortega, calling him a dictator who is overseeing, quote, fake elections.
Now, fans of football legend Diego Maradona gathered in the city of Rosario in Argentina to pay tribute to the player on what would have been his 61st birthday. Tears were shed during the emotional event, which has now become an annual gathering. Maradona died of a heart attack last year at the age of 60. That's it for this edition of Inside the Americas. From all of us on the team, thank you very much for watching.
In the stormy class of environmental policy, Costa Rica is the star pupil. It promotes ecology rather than military might, has abolished the army and redistributed its budget to protect biodiversity.
La planificación es la clave. Nosotros tenemos 70 años de construir esta matriz renovable.
Reforestation, new climate solutions, renewable energies.
Estamos ayudando al planeta y Costa Rica especialmente, que es un país que genera energía eléctrica, pues sale muy cómodo, ¿verdad?
Watch Costa Rica, the climate champion, in Reporters on France 24 and France24.com.
Consider me your code breaker. Day after day, I'm ready to go on air at any moment to help you make sense of the news we report.
I'm here to go live on set with analysis of the most important events of the day, often as they occur, and to provide clarity to our viewers.
At France 24, I work closely with the duty editor to give perspective to the big international news stories of the day.
My job is to follow international news and current affairs on a daily basis, to better understand and analyse the historical, geopolitical, economic and environmental importance of the world's major news stories.
On France 24, in-depth analysis of all the news from our international affairs editors. Liberté, égalité, actualité.